Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the third webinar of the LGMA towards COP26. My name is Yunus Arikan. I'm the Director of Global Advocacy at ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainability at World Secretariat in Bonn. Today, I will be having dual mode panelist and moderator. In today's webinar, I will be the only one who will share updates. For those who are familiar, we had two webinars in the past months. These webinars are convened every month. Before going to the technical details of the agenda, just for those who are new into this webinars, this lasts for around an hour. We usually keep all the attendees muted so that the webinar can at least run smoothly at the first half an hour, and then we open the floor for interactions. In the meantime, during the webinar, during the presentations, you can also type your questions to the question box, or you can also raise hands in the Q&A so that we can unmute you and you can interact as well. This webinar is recorded, and this is also later on uploaded on the YouTube so that other participants can also watch it. This webinar series, as we have mentioned before, is presented by ICLEI in its capacity as the local governments and municipal authorities constituency focal point to the UNFCCC and on behalf of the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments. So before starting, I'd like to share with you an important information. Those who are receiving our updates from LGMA mailing list, they are familiar with the efforts for connecting to the champions. We are happy to confirm today that both of the champions, Nigel Topping and Gonzalo Munoz, will join us on the 13th of May, which is around a month later on. We believe this will also provide us the opportunity to interact directly with the champions, and from now until then, there will be a series of course, preparations. We believe it will be helpful for us to have this direct interaction with the leaders of the process. Today, we will be just recalling, in our agenda, we'll be recalling the webinar, we will be recalling the institutional framework for COP26 and priorities. Then we will go through the key updates. There is an UNFCCC organization structure. There is a letter from champions. Several NDCs are submitted. We would like to focus on 3 of them, plus the European Minister's letter. We will cover the Earth Day, just to recall. In fact, one of the reasons why this webinar is held this week is because our regular cycle was every third Wednesday. In April, third Wednesday is 22nd of April, the Earth Day 50th anniversary this year. Therefore, we didn't want to overlap, but in particular, we want to have this one week before so that people can also attend the other events of the Earth Day. And we will just briefly highlight, because there are a lot of course, attention at the moment is on the COVID response or pandemic response. So we have made a very brief compilation. I would like to share this with you, particularly related to climate and resilience, maybe. For those who are interested, you can watch and download our webinar recordings and presentations on the 19th of February. This was with Jordan Harris from COP25 presidency. The second one was with Jordan and Kristen Mosadale from COP26. This was immediately before the postponement of SB52 and COP26. You can find the recordings of both, where we have input from both of colleagues from COP25 and COP26 presidencies. Recapping who is who, every year there is a cyclic process. The country who hosted or politically chaired the conference of the parties continues their leadership throughout the year, and the country who will host it in that year will start to prepare as the incoming presidency. For this year, we have COP25 led by Chilean Minister of Environment, Carolina Schmidt, and COP26 President-designate is Right Honorable Alok Sharma, Secretary of State of Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Sectors. COP25 President has appointed Gonzalo Munoz as the high-level champion. This is a practice since 2015, adopted in the Paris Agreement. And COP26 incoming presidency has designated Nigel Topping as the champion, but they also appointed Mark Carney as the finance advisor. Usually these discussions are supported by an intermediate meeting, usually May or June, in Bonn, which is called Sub-Saharan Body Meetings or Bonn Climate Conference. However, this year in 2020, as you may have followed, this meeting is postponed to October. Similarly, COP26 is postponed to a undefined date in 2021, which makes Chilean presidency as the longest serving presidency, and the UK government as being the longest preparatory phase for a COP, probably. Probably there will be advantages and disadvantages of all these things. That's what we will be discussing today and in the coming days and weeks ahead. As we said, every year we convene, engage with the UN climate negotiations through showcasing our own achievements or progress, through consultations in the workshops, and by contributing to the decision making, which is done by the parties. But through our interventions, we share our ideas, and by interacting with the friends of multi-level action, we also share our views, so that those who are supporting the multi-level climate action could benefit from our input, and they can turn it into draft decision, and hopefully it is adopted by the parties. Every year, presidencies release their priorities. In the 2020, UK government has announced adaptation and resilience, nature, energy transition, um, uh, clean road transportation, and finance as their priorities for the theme. Um, for the every year, in terms of our engagement as local and regional governments, we define our priorities. For COP26, we have announced it in Chile, in Madrid, at the COP25 presidency hosted event. We have defined raising ambition, NDC vertical integration, localizing climate finance, balanced adaptation mitigation, linked to circular economy, nature, and amplifying the global climate action. Just to recap, over these periods, we regularly keep a calendar. Obviously, with the postponement of COP26, this calendar does not make too much relevance now, because all of those events are either postponed or cancelled. But still, this was at least what was the situation before. We were thinking about a 33 list of 33 events, but it was also including around 100 plus other events led by LGMA partners, either the UNFCCC or CBD secretary negotiations, either by EU or global processes, or UN other agendas, or we were focusing on observance days. So this means that this calendar should be revised over the next couple of weeks, especially with having more clarity on the corona pandemic, whether it will be fade out or whether it will continue, so that those meetings can be rescheduled. Over the past weeks, since the beginning of the year, we have mapped what are the progress and 6 themes of the roadmap. In all elements, there are several points that we have to discuss. Climate Ambition Alliance is asking for new commitments, but also they are working on and clarifying the climate emergency and climate neutrality definitions. NDCP is working on the national governments. Several guides are being prepared, and several initiatives led by networks and UN agencies are focusing on NDCP localization or regionally or locally determined contribution. There's a process in the EU that's also unique on its own track. We have Partnership for Collaborative Climate Action, as well as synergy with UNFCCC Friends of Multi-Level Action. Climate finance, it's time to operationalize what was announced in 2019. And obviously, we have to see how the Article 6 negotiations will evolve. We are also checking how divesting from fossil fuels, which is a popular topic among local governments, is also impacting the whole finance debate. Especially after COVID-19, there is a big debate now on the recovery process being much more aligned with NDCs or SDGs. Therefore, we should make sure that there is a synergy, and it will even strengthen our efforts on sustainable urban and territorial development. we have to see how the biodiversity and circular economy discussions will feed into each other. Obviously, both of the host governments, climate and biodiversity COPs, are very actively involved in both of the agendas. That's an advantage. But now both of the summits are, or both of the conferences are postponed to 2021. There will also be more time to evaluate. But we also have to now start thinking in 2021. UK and Italy will also host the G20 and G7 presidency. That's also an opportunity because UK and Italy were also collaborating at the COP26 process. So there's a number of opportunities with the postponement that could be synergized if well managed, let's say. In terms of amplifying global climate action, we are still keeping our vision that at COP26 there should be ministers of urbanization also engaged. There should be much more connection to culture, arts, and other ministries so that they can support ambitious action. There should be a discussion on global climate action, which we will touch upon with the presentation or the letter from the champions. Overall, if you have seen this list, it's a complex and it's so diverse. Over the past weeks, we have been in consultation with select number of members of the LGMA, in particular, starting with those who have announced their endorsement to the COP26 roadmap, and we have also approached a number of others. I'm happy to inform you that at the moment we are now able to announce that all these 6 main areas, and in particular our agenda in Scotland or in Glasgow, would be now supported by a roadmap working group, LGMA roadmap working group. This is now including a number of organizations: Association of European Regions, C40, CC35, CMR, COSLA, FMDV, GCOM, ICLEI, Regions for UCLG, Under2 Coalition, WWF. These were the original signatories in COP25. Later on, over the past couple of weeks, Committee of the Regions, Commonwealth Local Government Forum, Climate Heritage Network, and UK 100 also joined us. And we are still in discussions with SLOCAT, Coalition for Urban Transitions, and Local Government Association in the UK. We hope the presence of such a group would also help us to interact better with the COP26 presidency, but also with Glasgow City Council as well as Scottish Government, who are jointly convening an agenda for both as part of the host country, but also as part of the LGMA overall process-wise. So we are happy that now available of such a diverse group, and of course it is open for additional engagement. We could now map much more clearly how can we advance in the next couple of months with the availability of time, which is reducing the stress, so that we can come up with much more ambitious outcomes in the 2021 COP26. As we said, on the 1st of April, UNFCCC announced its organizational structure. It is a bit more, let's say, similar to the previous ones. There is not a major change, but of course, the goal is to have a focus on the Paris Agreement implementation. It's just focusing not on the intergovernmental process, but also enhancing global climate action. Under this vision and this new structure, the key points maybe we can address is that traditionally the engagement until until COP21 in Paris, the traditional engagement was with the constituency-based engagement, which is LGMA is one of the 9. But on the way to Paris, there were more diverse engagement of workstream 2 or non-party stakeholders. So with this new design, all these stakeholder engagements or actors are now led by the process to be developed under the communication and engagement unit of the UNFCCC. It is called division actually, and that will be now mainstreaming all the engagement to the rest of the UNFCCC process. We will see how this would mean in practical terms, but I think as a first look, having the synergy between constituencies and climate action agenda, Marrakesh Partnership or others, I think will give a benefit that we can avoid overlaps and we can create much more impact. So that is our expectation, and let's see how it will evolve. Along the same date, actually, it was 3 days before, COP25 and COP26 champions also announced their vision for how to work for COP26, but also since Paris Agreement, since Madrid decisions and invited the Marrakesh Partnership to continue towards 2025, the new plan should definitely not focus only 1 year ahead, but also a new 5 years framework. So now the champions are asking for inputs from parties and actors and accredited organizations or not accredited organizations. They have defined Marrakesh Partnership, the three main, let's say, building blocks. They have a strategic engagement, and there's a tracking process, and there are modes of cooperation. All these have utilized a number of processes like Climate Action Summit, Regional Climate Weeks, Climate Ambition Alliance, Pathways, NASCA, Yearbook, Summary for Policymakers, Collaboration Forum. So all these process or initiatives, of course, how to continue, how to make them much more effective, how to enhance, and how to improve overall ambition is the question that champions are looking for. And the deadline, original deadline was 37th of July. But the 37th of July, 31 July 2020 was at a time when COP was still planned to be held in November. So maybe this rescheduling of the COP26 may also be an opportunity for them to further revise their calendar. We'll see. But obviously, the process has started, and the organizations can provide their feedbacks. And obviously, we would like to also check whether there could be joint submissions, but each of the members involved in the LGMA are also free to submit their own positions as well. The second NDC is, of course, the logic of COP26 in 2020 should be the moment that the initial NDCs, which was prepared before Paris Agreement, should be revised and hopefully should be much more ambitious, much more inclusive with the new vision laid out in the Paris Agreement. And of course, preparation of NDCs is not done at COP, but it is done before. Therefore, it makes more sense that parties communicate their NDCs before convening or coming to COP. And there is not an official, let's say, binding decision, but there are recommendations, or there are some let's say, practices that could be coming up, so that parties are encouraged to present earlier. It's around 6, I guess, submitted NDCs so far. 3 of them are very important. It doesn't mean that the other 3 are not important, but these 3 are a bit more unique in their sense on how they have dealt with local and regional governments, but also how they can influence the major economies or the other big emitting countries or other countries who have huge role in the process. For example, Norway is not a member of EU, but it's one of the very ambitious Annex 1 countries or developed countries. They have revised their NDCs. They have updated. They didn't say that it's second NDC, but they have updated NDC. The interesting thing is that they refer to the Talanoa dialogues, especially the one held with municipalities and mayors, which is something that we are proud of. And that is also showing the still relevance of Talanoa dialogues in the NDC process, in the second NDC process. We should not forget that there had already been consultations, and these are the resources we should reuse on the way towards COP26 and second NDCs. However, in the Norwegian NDCs, there is a recognition of this meeting, but it doesn't say how this meeting have helped or contributed to the national NDCs, the updated NDCs of Norway, which means because of the commitments from Arendal or Oslo or other Norwegian cities or regions, it's not clear whether this new or revised, updated Norwegian NDC is better strengthened or more ambitious. We don't know this, or we cannot see this. That's an important point to mention. The case of Chile is important. Chile has, of course, has a leadership because they are the host of the COP25, at least political host, not physically, and they have always emphasized the need to engage local and subnational actors. Especially, they were endorsing our roadmap in Madrid. We have developed it together. They're already rolling out the national and regional roadmaps. And at the session in Madrid, the minister, the COP25 president, was very clearly stating that they will benefit or they will encourage engagement of local and regional governments in the overall NDC raising ambition. However, in the current text, we see the reference to local and regional governments or subnational actors only adaptation and capacity building sessions, which is still not bad. I mean, we are very happy, especially capacity building doesn't necessarily only limit itself to adaptation. But of course, we would also like to see the Chilean ambition could be better raised with the engagement of local and regional governments, or the NDCs could be mitigation component can also be better implemented with their engagement. Of course, these documents are always possible to be refreshed or revised. Therefore, it's starting point at least. So therefore, we are very happy the Chilean government has already acknowledged this, and therefore we encourage other countries to be inspired with this example. One very interesting submission came from Japan. It was one of the early submissions. In fact, it was a bit frustration. At first hand, it was good because it stick to the time frame. It should be communicated 9 months before. But Japanese government seemed to be relatively conservative in the document they have presented. And in particular, there was huge expectation because at COP25 and afterwards, we have seen around 50% of the Japanese population managed by local governments or prefectures or metropolitan governments, they have expressed their climate neutrality targets. So obviously, when their local and regional governments are expressing their climate neutrality targets, it's like a natural result that the Japanese national targets could also be improved. However, you cannot find this reference or this kind of a vision in the current document. Meanwhile, we're also aware there are internal discussions within Japanese stakeholders, within Japanese Ministry of Environment and other partners. Therefore, we also believe this is not the last opportunity, but just on the contrary, having this document on paper publicly is an opportunity for others to comment and create additional channels. Therefore, we again commend the Japanese government, and we express our support to all Japanese partners, stakeholders, local and regional governments, so that they increase their engagement with the Japanese government, so that a revised version could be brought sometime later on before COP26. And finally, there's a letter just released yesterday. 13 European climate and environment ministers have announced that the Green Recovery, Green Deal should be constitute the essence of the recovery program of the European-wide response to the corona pandemic. That's of course very encouraging, and it's exactly the way we would wish to see, because the new, let's say, cities or the new economy that will be built after a pandemic should not follow the business as usual or should not repeat the mistakes of the past. And having a vision for NDCs, having an SDG vision, and all these documents officially adopted by national governments is an opportunity to be hopeful that the future would be much better than the past. The missing element, maybe, if we can comment in this document, is that there is no reference to multi-level or collaborative climate action. There is an emphasis to private sector or business community, but there's not a reference to multi-level or collaborative action. However, again, this is still an opportunity for us to now approach those national governments or ministers to recall that Paris Agreement foresees a multi-level implementation. We also have an initiative called Partnership for Collaborative Climate Action. Many of the national governments, including Germany, is leading in this process. Therefore, this letter is opening doors wide open for us as an LGMA constituency to be much more ambitious and approaching to the like-minded countries. Also use this opportunity in the consultations on climate pact and climate law. Well, the climate agenda is evolving. As we said, next week is an important moment in time. This is the 50th anniversary of the Earth Day. Before corona pandemic was rolled out, unfortunately, there was a plan that this Earth Day would be one of the massive mobilization of the global stakeholders on sustainability and climate action, repeating the success of the first Earth Day in 1970, which was a remarkable moment to change the architecture of the environmental movement, not only just the citizen level, but also at the governmental level, such as creating of EPA in the US or kicking off Stockholm Environment Conference and creation of UN Environment Program and rolling out a massive era for environmental management. So that was the same expectation that in 2020 we would kick off such a powerful movement, a massive demonstrations that COP26 will be inspired by this momentum. However, what this new challenges, the Earth Day was announced by the network to be going fully on digital. There will be numerous events. Earth Day website will publish this on a live basis. There is another initiative similar to Earth Day, or at least in collaboration with Earth Day, throughout the week between 20 of April to 26th of April. Every day there is an online webinar, and one of them is on local governments on the 24th. UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network is hosting a 24-hour webinar on the same day, 22nd of April. And UNESCO, UN Climate Secretariat, UN Desertification, Earth Day, WWF has united their forces for a global concert to support the World Health Organization and all efforts on corona pandemic. That is also will be held on the 22nd of April, 8 p.m. at the Eastern Time in New York time. For those who are familiar, City of Bonn, in celebration of the 250th anniversary of Beethoven, they were also planning to roll out a Beethoven pastoral campaign, which was connecting arts and culture community from 22nd of April towards 5th of June. However, this is also now going online. An example is the Beethoven Pastoral Symphony is performed by Beethoven Orchestra from their houses or homes or public spaces that are acknowledging the social distancing. So this is a very fresh performance. You can watch how orchestra members are uniting their forces. It's 2.5 minutes video, which is inspiring that in the corona we can still be inspired by arts, music, and nature, and recall Beethoven's legacy, but also provide feed into the new world that we will be developing soon. And finally, on recognition of the 22nd of April and Beethoven Pastoral Project, you can also watch the video message of Mayor of Bonn. We know on the Earth Day, 22nd of April, the Earth Day Network will also be releasing a number of videos from other leaders. Finally, this is our last slide. This is a selection of links for COVID-19 pandemic responses, in particular with the leading or in connection with the local and regional governments. The UN system has a website, and in particular, UN Secretary General has announced a global fund, as well as he has released its report and to encourage members to benefit from SDGs, Agenda 2030, and Paris Agreement's climate action plans to be the let's say lighthouses for their recovery plans. Just yesterday, maybe you heard the World Health Organization is now facing a new challenge because the biggest donor, the United States, have announced that they will withdraw their financial contributions. In fact, it is not the first time such a thing is happening. A couple of years ago, when U.S. administration was led by Trump, there was also a similar effort, but this membership fee was now covered up by Bloomberg Philanthropies at that time. So in fact, UNFCCC financially didn't influence or did not feel too much. So we hope a similar bottom-up approach from US stakeholders could come up so that WHO funding continues. Within the UN, community local 2030 has compiled a nice gathering, let's say, compendium of efforts on corona pandemic, which can be read in the newsletter. UN Capital Development Fund is gathering daily bulletins or blogs on the local government finance globally with language translation to many UN languages. So these are the interesting initiatives from UN. Networks of local and regional governments, as expected, are immediately responding to this challenge because their members are at the forefront, and the benefit of united through global networks and expert networks or regional networks is an opportunity. Metropolis has launched the Cities for Global Health Registry. UCLG has kicked off live learning courses beyond the outbreak. ICLEI started to compile its resources, including a blog of sustainable professionals, webinars by resilience officers of Milan and Quito, and dedicated messages from Europe, Africa, and South America. C40 has gathered from its members, from food to transport, how they are leading or tackling with the crisis. At the European level, Eurocities is also gathering an update of their members. And in the US, National League of Cities also taking the leadership in compiling the efforts of US cities and states. Thematically, SLOCAT has made a nice compendium of online resources, especially focusing on sustainable transport and COVID responses. In particular, on the climate impacts, of course, there is a big debate because practically the reduction of emissions due to minimized human activity is probably giving a bit of a small break to the continuous increase of emissions for decades, let's say. Probably we will see for the first time a concrete reduction of global emissions with the cost of economical activity, but also as an opportunity, like a reset of all these activities, so that once they start to roll out, they may be using different technologies, different fuels, different methodologies, or different policies, so that we do not go back to the same level of emissions afterwards. There's an interesting article in Guardian in terms of the reactions to this, let's say, dilemma or an opportunity. And Carbon Brief has also made a nice mapping of how GHG emission reductions in China is also visibly felt with the remote sensors, and as well as a lot of cities are reporting the benefit of reduced air pollution, helping a lot of health benefits to the community. So there are pros and cons of all these realities that we are living in. The challenge for all of us is how to make sure these are all systematically managed, but not as coming as a surprise or an enforced, let's say, requirement, but rather an inspirational new way of living globally. So with this, we have come to the conclusion of our session for today. You can find the list of the dates and as well as links to the registration as well as the presentations. We also have captured again the links. As we said before, this webinar, both the presentation and the recording will be uploaded on the web so that you can download and share widely. The floor is open. I know it's not easy to be paying attention to 35 minutes of an online session, but we are now eager to hear your contributions, views, comments, anything that is missing, anything that you want to add or challenge or clarify. Feel free to raise your hand or type in your questions or unmute yourself. I see a raised hand. Just let me check. Anthony from WWF. Please, Anthony. Thanks a lot. Please unmute yourself or I can help you. Okay, you're unmuted, Anthony.
Thanks. I couldn't unmute myself. Yes, hi Yunus. Hi everybody. Yeah, thanks for all this. It's really good that you're sort of keeping on shining the light ahead for us as we go through these difficult times and uncertain times. I just had one question. Something that you haven't mentioned is the plans or what the next steps are for the Daring Cities conference that was planned for the same time as the SBs. I realise it's probably still being considered, but do you have any advice you can give on what your plans are there?
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for both for your support and acknowledgement of our work. We are also happy to hear such feedbacks. Daring Cities is one of those events that we were planning a year ahead. As you mentioned, it was planned for 3 to 5 of June. We have posted an announcement that we are on hold. It is for sure it will not be on 3 to 5 of June. Whether it will be fully virtual or whether it will be connected to COP26 or to the SP52, we're still in discussion, both with our core partners, ministries of environment and ministers of development of Germany, state of North Rhine-Westphalia and city of Bonn, as well as in consultation with UNFCCC Secretariat. As you know, on the 1st of April, the announcement came in the sense that the SP52 is now scheduled to October. Although it's shorter, it still now is planned. So we are checking whether it still could be possible a combination that maybe we can have virtual consultations in advance, and then on sometime during this week, maybe not as a full 2 days as we have originally foreseen, but shorter with a smaller scale, that we can still engage, especially in connecting our efforts on climate emergency, recovery of pandemic and disease process, so that we can interact our outcomes with the UNFCCC negotiators. So we would hope that we will make some more concrete decisions over the coming days. We hope to make this announced by the end of this month, by the latest, or early beginning of May. And please feel free to check our website, daringcities.org, but we will also share it through LGMA mailing list as well. And many thanks for your interest. So any additional comments, questions? I see a question from Susan Nolden. Susan Nolden from City of Bonn is recalling the Petersburg Climate Dialogue that is coming up on the 27th of April on a virtual basis. Those who are familiar with the UN climate talks, when official technical sessions are held in Bonn in May or June, either before or afterwards, the German government is hosting a Petersburg Climate Dialogue. Petersburg is the mountain or the resort next to Bonn, but these Petersburg Climate Dialogue was the initial meeting, but later on it is continued in Berlin, but still referring to Petersburg. So we are informed that this year the champions, as well as German government and the COP26 presidency, incoming presidency, and the COP25 presidency, are planning to have a Petersburg Climate Dialogue on the 27th of April virtually, and they are approaching a number of stakeholders to receive their inputs via video messages. I assume UNFCCC Secretariat or the COP26 presidents will be announcing these soon. I haven't seen the official announcement, therefore I didn't want to make a concrete information, because we are not the organizer partner of this process. But obviously it's a good signal that this high-level dialogue is also looking for inputs from non-party stakeholders, and we hope there will be numerous voices from local and regional governments. Thanks for alerting this, Susan. Anthony is also thanking us in the chat box or in the question box that WWF is keen on contributing. We definitely count on you. In that sense, there will be more updates for us. For those, again, the roadmap. One important point: postponement of COP does not mean postponement of the efforts to come up with national plans for climate, especially in the moments of crisis. Probably the things that were not imaginable before is now possible to think about. I mean, if you look at the response measures, some of them are really the ones that we have been asking for in terms of economic and social, or even the response of the societies. If we think that 1/3 of global population is under lockdown in this era, it is a significant sacrifice. Obviously, people are also seeing that there are things, services, technologies that they don't need, or they're seeing the value of or the benefit of not using them, and they're also seeing that there will be opportunities of using a different way of dealing with these issues, could still produce wealth or still produce prosperity without the cost of environment or nature. Therefore, the roadmap is still very important. We believe the 6 elements is very important, and we would like to make sure that don't wait until COP, but start preparing for this. And this is also relevant for our hosts, the UK presidency, the Scottish government, the Glasgow City Council, so that they are aware of the presence of our work, so that their plans could also be influenced. As I said, we have now created a working group, and we would be shortly circulating additional information on that. So any partners in the LGMA are invited to join us. They can reach us through the mailings that we have been circulating, so that we can engage you in this process. In the next webinar, which is 13th of May, we will be sharing more updates on that. But I think this is the timely effort to change course of our engagement and think of more ambitious and more let's say diverse and holistic. Natalia from Regions 4 is mentioning highlighting the Committee of the Regions study on the challenges and opportunities of climate adaptation for local and regional authorities. Public consultation on the 27th of April. Natalia, thanks a lot for alerting us in this, which was not visible in my presentation, but it was good for you to remind us. Committee of the Regions is also part of the new working group, and they will always be very actively involved in both at the COP, but also in preparations of the European cities and regions towards COP and then towards the European institutions. So we are happy that this effort is continuing. There may be also an additional point, Natalia, since you raised this issue. In the biodiversity track, you may remember biodiversity in Kunming in October was also an important agenda, where cities and regions are actively involved in this process. ICLEI is coordinating the process on behalf of Global Task Force, and Regions 4 are the core partners as well. There was already a plan that early April there was a meeting scheduled in Edinburgh in Scotland for a consultation on biodiversity and subnational actors. This has now changed. Instead of a 3 days meeting to a year-round consultation. That is now led again by our colleagues in the biodiversity process, and tomorrow ICLEI Cities Biodiversity Center is having their regular biodiversity advocacy webinars, and we will hear more from them as well. The achievements or the progress in the biodiversity will also help us. Again, the adaptation and resilience discussions will all feed into the COP26, because, as you have seen from the priorities of the COP26 presidency, there is a strong emphasis on adaptation and resilience. UK and Egypt were the hosts of the track in the 2019 UN Climate Action Summit on adaptation and resilience. Nature-based solutions, again, is a very top priority. China, UK, they are all actively involved. So there are a lot of opportunities that we should seek for, and all these relevant initiatives we should track. And that's why having a working group under the umbrella of LGMA that connects all the other processes will be extremely helpful. We are very eager to kick off this process. Okay. Any additional hands or inputs are more than welcome. Dr. Kaha Nadiradze has just typed in a comment. I don't know him or her or the email account doesn't give me an impression, but let me read his or her or statement. Thank you very much for this wonderful webinar and presentation. We are very interested to develop a working group by participation of non-EU member countries like Georgia. Is it possible? Definitely. I mean, just to recall, local governments and municipal authorities constituency is a constituency which is gathering primarily the accredited networks of local and regional governments at the global level to the UNFCCC, but we are not limiting ourselves. Those who are not accredited to the UNFCCC are still receiving our updates, receiving our information. They are contributing to our consultations, and we're also helping them that they can participate in the events, provided that quotas or criteria are met that are defined by the UNFCCC. Georgia, other countries in the Central Caucasus or Central Asian Republic or anywhere in the world, they are all open to join us. Most cases, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, these are the countries in the, let's say, bigger expanded Europe, especially in the Council of Europe or more diverse Europe, and many of the European networks are reaching out to those cities, and we can connect you to them. We, as ICLEI Europe, also have these networks, but we also other networks. You are definitely more than welcome to join us. We know, I remember the Georgian delegation, we're also very supportive of our positions in the UNFCCC process. So it's a great pleasure to have you joining us. Maybe we continue our dialogue later on so that we can include you in our mailing lists, and depending on your institutional framework, we can register you as either in the LGMA, which is the networks of local governments, or UNFCCC Friends of Multi-Level Action if you are a representative of national government. Thanks a lot for your interest. Okay, there is a response. So you are working with DesertNet International Network. Okay, definitely we'll send you updates, and we will be more than happy to have new partners joining us, and we can hear your engagement, and we can support your work, and then we can present this, share this globally. We have contribution from Talia Vogerbauer from Austrian delegation. Thanks a lot for joining us, Talia. She has been a close friend of local and regional governments, also overall global climate action. She's the ambassador of Article 12 of the Paris Agreement, Article 6 of the UNFCCC, which is action for climate empowerment, focusing on public participation, access to information, education, training, and awareness raising. Talia, if you have any points to raise, we can unmute you, or you can type your question. It's a great pleasure to have you joining us. I just saw your message now. Good morning, Yunus. Thank you for the highly informative and comprehensive overview. It is amazing what's going on beyond the UNFCCC process by non-party stakeholders. However, it would be advisable to connect more with parties to make visible what is ongoing by all of you. Kind regards. Dear Natalia, thanks a lot for this valuable information. We would be more than happy to have more communication with the parties. We are doing our best to use our channels like mailing lists, submissions, or interventions. Obviously, with the new calendar, there will be more opportunities to engage, and especially knowing your active leadership in the ACE agenda, Action for Climate Empowerment, which is also a very important agenda for global climate action. I think there's a lot of opportunities for us to get together. So we are eager to hear your advice or recommendation, and we can explore new opportunities in this new, let's say, era. We know ACE for Climate Empowerment is also, in the year 2020, is looking for additional strategy beyond 2020. I think we can all make use of this mobilization. If you can recall, in our 26 roadmap, COP26 roadmap, we already have foreseen, in terms of amplifying the global climate action, we have to have much more collaboration with the different entities of UNFCCC or different process of UNFCCC, and Action for Climate Empowerment in Katowice at COP24, they have adopted a decision where they have actively looking for engagement of local governments. These are additional elements. There are other processes like Paris Committee for Capacity Building, just kicked off a new network. So the key message is that the UNFCCC process is much more complex and diverse. And in order to make sure we get a meaningful outcome, and not just only limited to the NDCs, but also all elements of the UNFCCC process, we have to get together more often and have a much more systematic way of work. We believe this working group could be a good starting point, so that we gather all the information and intelligence, and then get back to you, and having support and engagement or acknowledge from parties like you, or representatives of parties like you or parties like Austria or other countries in the for us, the friends of multi-level action, we would be more than happy to continue and staying in touch with you. So I think we have just 5 more minutes left. We can save time. Very nice feedback from Talia Fogelbauer. Thanks so much. We also appreciate your contributions. With this, maybe we can now wrap up. Don't forget the letters are up from COP25 to COP26. We have time. The deadline is 31st of July, so no hurry, but we should start to compile our ideas. Indices, we have to have a closer look. European is always very important to follow. Earth Day, join all this global mobilization, be it a webinar, be it a concert, be it from your home, be it from your network. Just show to the world that we can build a better world if we live in harmony with our nature, with our climate, and with our citizens. And with this, I'd like to wish you all a nice day, evening, and night. We will continue this discussion in the afternoon at 4 p.m. and we will upload this information on the web as soon as possible. And thank you a lot, and bye-bye.